This is perhaps one of those conversations that we have with our parents, but we fail to have them in detail. We fail to have them in a way that is understanding, because whenever we have these conversations, it looks as if us as a young person, or us as a child or the kid, we are demanding things that are not possible, things that we can never be handed. And it is perhaps with a very deep heart and a heavy heart when I'm saying this. I think it is very obvious to admit that as African parents, we are not your bank account. We are not your relief fund. We are not your rescue plan for when you become retired and you can no longer work. These are things that you should have planned out from the beginning. You brought us into this world not because, yes, I want to have kids so that one day they can take care of me. I think it is really unfair to assume that that's why you should produce kids, so that they can take care of you, and it is not a really good gift to pass down. Other kids from different backgrounds, coming from different generations, what their parents thought of them was for them to have a better life. They're brought into this world is for them to receive the inheritance of their parents, not the other way around. What we tend to see most of the time happening within our communities as black people is we are seeing parents oftentimes hoping and relying on the kid to take care of them at some point in life. Now, I'm going to be very honest how I feel about this whole situation. Black tax in particular. I've written articles about it. I've had discussions about this in forums. I've spoken to people, tried to find different opinions and ideas around this whole idea of black tax. And I have a very um, negative outlook about black tax as an individual, but I also am one that knows that it's not all about just helping parents. I do know that there are certain circumstances and situations where your parents really need their hand. They really need their helping hand, and they cannot continue to survive. And I'm not saying that the world has been fair to them and therefore they should have had everything's figured out for themselves. But we have to also face the reality of what's really happening. If we look at a situation where you guys live in a country where the democracy has been almost longer than 30 years, if your parents had the chance to study at universities and schools, they have a sort of skills, they had the ability to build some kind of wealth in the past. Wealth does not necessarily have to be quantified by how much they are able to do in terms of anything beyond their own home. I think wealth can be quantified down to what they can do for them, the mother and the father, as well as the kids. You guys were all sent to school. You guys have a good education because of your parents. I agree. If you guys have had, if you guys have never had to struggle when it comes to medical bills, you've never slept outside, you've always had the roof over your head, it's all thanks to the parents. That's the hard work and the labor they've put in so that you guys can have a good life. But there are certain discussions and conversations that we are not having, especially when it comes to black tax. We think about it as though it is some kind of a curse. It is a conversation that we cannot have because we are owing our parents. And I feel like there is one particular video that I saw which describes this thought very clearly. As kids, we don't really own our parents anything. If you think about it, we never chose to be born into this world. And some kids were born into circumstances and situations where it was not even up to the parents themselves. And I could go into detail with regards to that kind of cases, but think about the ones where you, as an individual, a young person within the African continent, today you find yourself alive, whichever country you might be from. Did you really choose to be born? Was it your choice? Was it a decision that you made, or was it a decision made by two individuals who decided to come together and consummate and have kids? So it wasn't. Then why is it that all of a sudden, once you are living this life, it has become a deal set on you as you're going throughout life to then take care of these people? And if that's then the case, would it be, should I say, is it then okay to assume that because you were put through this whole scenario where you're supposed to take care of your parents, is it then up to your kids to take care of you one day? Isn't that what's creating the cycle of poverty and having this sort of like high expectation for your kids just because of black tax? And sometimes I feel like when we point out these sort of things, conversations are taken the wrong way, discussions are completely out of turn. I do appreciate very much my parents, especially my dad, who has made it very clear that he never wants to have an helping hand from us. But me and my brothers have made it very clear to ourselves that it is something that we want to do because we are grateful. It is how we want to show our gratitude to him. And some people might even pull scripture on me and say, but this is what the Bible says. Father, as children, honor your parents, for it is good, and it is a blessing from the Lord if you honor there's all of these scriptures. But when we bring down everything to the core of just understanding what it actually means to take care of your parents, how do we even define that? Is this is there some kind of book that we can follow? Is there some kind of rule that we can really go to, that we can use as a reference, which points to us what it really means for a child or young person within the continent to take care of their parents? Because today, in today's culture, and the African ecosystem, black tax is being abused. It's the only tax that has no regulations. It is the only tax that is not regulated by the government. No, it's not really regulated by any sort of system, but it exists in a way that controls the mind. And especially if you are in Africa, it is a kind of tax that helps control you. It really destroys your relationship with people within your own family. Psychologically, you are impacted by this, mentally as well. And oftentimes, you start to ask yourself, am I doing enough? Am I ever going to be doing enough for these people? That is how black tax sometimes feels like. When I really wrote this article about black tax, I tried to go in depth with the whole idea of how, as kids, we don't really owe our parents anything if you think about it. And I'm talking about bringing it down to the prime, like the finest of things, that being birth. You were born into this world. It was never your choice. That is the number one thing every young person's gotta understand, and every child, even the parents as well. None of us were born into this world by choice. It was a decision made by two individuals, and those are our parents. So when we really think about it, you don't owe them anything. If it is about the life that you have that they've given you, you still don't owe them anything, because you're the first point of decision making. You are not consulted in, and I think that's in itself is the beauty and the curse of what life is. You are born into this world, you have no say in that part, but then you should have a say in all these other things that really has nothing to do with you. Why am I speaking about this? Well, I was thinking about why oftentimes us as young Africans we are caught up in the middle of situations that we cannot come out of, right? And fair enough, there are situations that when it comes, it comes. You have no control over. And people might even think I'm speaking from a place of pride because I have this and that. And to be honest, it's not. I'm just trying to create a conversation. I'm hopefully hoping that people can actually say something, even in the comment section. I'll be looking forward to see what people think about this. I am really at the point where I'm realizing I don't owe any of my parents anything. And even if it means that it comes to building wealth for my future and my future offsprings, I have to be able to put my foot down and say I don't owe these people anything. Now, does that mean that I'm going to neglect these people? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And this is not something that I'm endorsing or encouraging. I'm not saying that young people should go back to their parents and tell them, I don't owe you anything, and therefore I'm going to not even do anything for you in the coming months or years. I personally want to ask, and I'm hoping that this point can raise a discussion with our elders, our parents, and everyone else, where they can actually start looking at how are we helping them, how are we getting to the point where we are making it a big deal, and why have we made black tax such a big deal within our community. It is a conversation that we are not really ready to have between young people and older people, or between a child and the parents. We are not the should I say, we are not the backup plan for their future. Other race groups are not doing that. Maybe perhaps they are, but not to the extent at which us as African people we are doing it. And I've seen it all the time. And the worst part about black tax is it has destroyed families. It has destroyed relationships between families, because there was some kind of level of expectation from the elders to the younger kids, and those expectations were never met, and so now relationships have to be broken, which saddens me quite a lot. And I've seen that oftentimes. But in conclusion, I do personally think that as a young person growing up in the African ecosystem, you shouldn't feel like you owe anybody anything. The fact that you're alive today, that number one fact, of course, is that you had no choice. The fact that you were born today, you had no choice over that. You had no power over that. It wasn't really up to you. And once you start looking at things that way, you start moving differently. And even the way you knew you decide certain things, even when it comes to deciding to having your own kids, you're going to ask yourself multiple questions. Do I really want to have kids because I find them to be a blessing to me? Or do I want to have kids because I'm hoping to create future uh, employees of mine that all take care of me when I become older? And I hope I'm gonna lay the mic down there.